Hey guys, B Twice here. Today is Tuesday, July 13th. Hope everybody had a good day. We're going to be taking a look at wave theory and technical analysis of SPY, QQQ, IWM, and a few other stocks that I chose to throw up on here today. So without further ado, let's get into this. All right, so SPY, I talked about this yesterday. I saw a pullback coming today. Still a chance that we will dip a little bit lower tomorrow. Um, and that's what I see us going up for one, pulling back for two. We're going to go 3, 4, 5. So this is going to be a 3, 4, 5 all in this line, taking us up to my wave three price target of 440. I still do really like the 440 level for the next drop. That's going to be a couple percent drop. Today, obviously not a very big one. That couple percent drop could take us all the way back down to the, somewhere in the mid 430s, if not all the way down to 430, somewhere in that range. High up at these levels, I've been talking about this on Twitter when I've been tweeting that I do think these dips are buys, but that hedge is important. And why do I say hedge is important? I say hedge is important because whether I've miscounted or whether we top early or whatever the case may be, and this ends up being a wave five, and I'm just off. If this ends up being a wave five and we flush and we're going down, obviously it'd be this yellow wave five, which is this ends up ultimately being this wave three, which is taking us down for a four. That could take us down below 400 depending on where the peak is. Obviously, if the peak is 450 or 455, we could be looking at, um, 398 is the low. If the peak ends up being here, we could be looking at 380. So it's a pretty big drop if we go all the way down for that wave four. And that's why I say hedge is important. Sometimes you can just use even cash as hedge, right? Like, if you're not fully invested and you just have 25% of your account in or something like that, and you're fully okay with losing that, then you could just leave cash so that you can buy the dip once we get more clarity on where the thing's going. Things of that nature. But either way, what I'm seeing is that we're pulling back for a two, kind of like I said yesterday, we'd get this pullback, and then ultimately we'll rally up from here. So I do still think dips are a buy here. Now, I've added a couple of things to these charts today, and I'm going to talk about them. So these purple lines right here are supports. I used a volume shelf, and I took it off this chart because it's just too hard to see what's going on if I leave it on here. But I've added some volume shelf resist or support on here so we can see some levels that we want to watch. So 433, if we break 433 coming down, we're going to go to 430 probably relatively very quickly. So we really want to watch this 433 range. If we lose that, there's a good chance we're going to go down and not going to find support until 430. So just be mindful of that. All right, same thing with QQQ. The dip, just like I kind of called out yesterday, that we would pull back a little bit. I see us going lower. I don't think it's finished. I think we're going to go lower tomorrow. I do think that dip is a good buy and that we're going to be rallying from probably about 360 up to upper 360s, whether that's 366 or 370, somewhere in this ballpark, depending on how strong the rally is. And a lot of that's going to really, it's going to make a difference on what big tech can do. Obviously, big tech got kind of decimated today in a sense, or some of big tech did. Now, with that being said, I've drawn a couple levels here as well. So between 359, the 359 area, if we lose that, then 355 is going to come quick, and that's just same difference. I use the volume shelf just to see where the supports would be. So here's the next two big supports that we're really looking at. Is like basically 359. Lose that, we're going to 355. All right, so IWM. After counting this recently, I actually really liked it and ended up getting in on it today. Um, so I was a dip buyer today, and let me show you why. And I did tweet about this because a lot of times I don't have time to jump on here right after work, or even while I'm at work, I obviously can't. So a lot of times what I'll end up doing is I'll tweet if I think that something's a dip to buy and why. Kind of like I was tweeting about Tesla being a dip to buy today, and I talked about that yesterday as well. That I thought if it went back to 660, that would be like the last boarding call before we rip to 700. So not even going to show Tesla in this video, but just an FYI, I did tweet about that. I thought Tesla was a good buy today. But with that being said, what I'm seeing is a 5-wave move up for a 1. I thought we were going to go a little bit higher for a 1, but ultimately this was the 5-wave move up here. So we've peaked for a 1. We've come back down for an A, pulled up for a B, and then came down for a C. And so I see us finishing the C We could go a little bit lower tomorrow. It could go all the way down to this 221.35, and I did tweet that as well, that we could go as low as 221. Technically, it's still valid even if we go all the way down here to 217. I don't like it going that low, and I don't think it will, just because I don't think SPY and QQQ is going to keep flushing, even though this has been the weakest. So obviously, if those go down 0.5%, this thing's probably going to go down a whole percent. But with that being said, I do think it's going to catch support somewhere here. So if you're playing options, buy time. But ultimately, when we do catch the support and we rally, it's going to be very, very fast. It's going to be a wave three, and that's why I am playing with fire, and I bought this dip today on this big drop, because I do think that this wave three is going to take us up to 230 a share. That's a pretty big gain if you can catch that on options. So I am in here. I'll be watching it, and I do think the dips, depending on how big they are, a buy. Obviously, if we go sub 220, I'm going to be very skeptical about my position. So hopefully we don't go sub 220 tomorrow, but we'll keep an eye out on this one. But I do still think that dips are a buy. Hopefully we can catch this fire up to this wave three, grab some profits, get out, and then be able to get this pullback down here and buy the dip again to rally to all-time highs. All right, so now I'm going to go into some stocks. Walmart. Walmart has been one of my favorites. I was screaming about Disney for a while, and then ultimately people who got into it were able to get some gains yesterday, take some profits, and then ultimately wait to catch this next wave up, or even buy the dip today on Disney, which I think was a pretty good move. But let's talk about Walmart. Walmart could take a while to present itself to be able to rally and break out, but ultimately I do see this thing going up to 150, 151 a share for my wave three price target. Now, because Walmart doesn't really move like a growth stock, it's going to take a while to develop. So you want to buy time if you're playing options, especially because we don't really know if wave two's bottomed, right? It could have already bottomed, or we could still head lower. We saw a lot of strength today out of Walmart, but it's really struggling at this resistance. So I didn't draw supports on here. There's a lot of them in this area. But I drew some resistances. So if we can get above and stay above 140 or really 141, I drew it here, but pretty much 141. If Walmart can get above 141, there's a good chance it's flying above 142. It'll probably go straight to 142.50 before it hits the next area of resistance, which is right here. And like I said, this is just all done using the volume shelf. So we need to get above that 141 range. That should give us 142.50 quickly. If we can have enough power to take that, there's blue skies above, and this thing will launch just like Disney did, and we'll end up seeing ourselves in the upper 140 range very, very quickly, probably 146 in a day. Now, mind you, this could take a couple months. We could go all the way to the apex before we launch, so because we could literally just trade sideways, try it sideways, and then dip down, touch here, and then launch. You never know. So if you're playing options, buy time. But these are the levels to watch, and I do really like Walmart as one of my next big picks, hopefully coming soon. And I am already in that position, by the way. Um, all right, so GRWG. I tweeted about this one last night because I saw it. So basically, let's go at a bigger scale just so we can kind of see it before we dive into the hourly. So obviously, this is my trend line I kind of drew sloppily on my phone yesterday, and I didn't take the time to revamp it today just because I have a lot to do after I get off of this. But basically, what I'm seeing is this is a trend line back from, I don't know, when it IPO'd. It's never broken that, right? So we've been in this uptrend for this entire time. That's a really, really good sign that it was very promising. It held here. What I'm seeing is we popped it for a one and we pulled back for a two, and that this is two bottom. On my phone last night, I didn't draw the one on two, so I apologize for that. But this up here is a peak for one. This down here, this Y is a bottom for two. We pulled back for a W, went up for an X, then we came down for our Y. So this is what I see as a wave two bottom. And now let's jump into the hourly so we can actually do an analysis on this thing. All right, so now we've held this uptrend. And then we had this downtrend line that I drew, right? Because we were in the correction, we were in the downtrend. Well, look at that. We broke out this downtrend, came up, we came back, we successfully back tested it. We actually just a little bit above it, back tested it, rallied, and now obviously we've broken the downtrend, right? So that's great. So we're in our primary uptrend. We broke out of our downtrend. Those are extremely bullish things to see. And what I'm seeing is we had a 5-wave move up for a one. Obviously, this is not drawn right because it was on my phone. So we pulled up for a one here. We pulled back for a two. So this was our two bottom right here. Now, so we're in a wave three. We're in this blue wave three. My price target is 57 a share. And what we're seeing right now is that this whole sequence up was a one, and that we've pulled back for a two, and we've already bottomed. I say we've bottomed for our two at the 61.8% retracement. Now, could it go lower? Sure, it could. But I do ultimately think we bottomed. I already think that we've popped it for a one and pulled back for a two, and we're about to be in this wave three of three, which is going to take us somewhere into the low 50s. From there, we'll see a little pullback, and then ultimately we'll rally up to get us to, it'd be mid 50s, right? Yeah, we'd rally up for our mid 50s, pull back, and then ultimately go up for 57 or so a share. So the levels that I've drawn on here, based on the volume shelf, there's strong support right here at this 44.50 range, right? And that's exactly where the 61.8% retracement is. So this is going to be a really tough area to break. If it does break that, that's not a great sign. That doesn't mean the trade is broken. If the market starts to really correct, it will probably break that. But ultimately, we'll hope that it really holds this level. And then there's some strong resistance up here at this 49, between 49 and 50. So if we can break above this, there's a relatively good chance we're going to rally straight up into this, 55 range from there. So I did add shares of GRWG. I am not in options. That's more or less just because I'm long and I've been long GRWG, so I just decided to add to my position with shares. But I will be watching this, and depending on price action, I may add some options to this as well. All right, so NVIDIA was something that was requested of me today. Since I already had drawn it in the past, it was pretty easy for me just to pull up and go over it again. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that we've bottomed for our wave 4, and that we've already had a 5-wave move up for our blue 1. So we've already peaked there. We're pulling back for our 2. 2 may have bottomed today. There's a chance of that, or it could potentially go a little bit lower depending on the state of the market. If it does go a little bit lower, I really like the 800 level. Between 800 to 70.95 for it to catch support. I don't want it to break that level at all, but I do like that for it to catch support there, and I think that's a really good dip buy just because I don't think it'll go any lower. Ultimately, where I see us going is somewhere into this 840 range before a little bit of a pullback, and then we're going to be heading somewhere up towards 850 for our wave 3 peak, and then from there we're going to see a really big flush to take us back to probably the mid 700s. So I do still really like this name. I am in NVIDIA, and I am going to be riding this up, hopefully, so we can see these 850 plus price targets to finish off this this monstrous wave 3. So some levels to watch out for. So I didn't even put any resistance on here because obviously it's clear blue skies above 835, right? That's all-time high. So if we break all-time highs, there's a good chance we'll rip straight to where we need to be above 850. That's just because there's not going to be there's not too much resistance, or we really don't know what the resistance is going to be up there. It's usually psychological levels, and that's why I think that this 850 level is probably where we're going to stop. With that being said, I put some supports on here. So strong support at 795, and strong support at 770. What does that tell us? Well, if we lose 795, like if we go to 794, not a big deal, right? Because it could go right back to 795. 793, maybe even right back to 795. If we go sub 792, or if we close below 795, that is not a good sign, and we are going to see 770 range very fast, because this is a gap up right here. So we gapped up, and when you gap up, there's no volume in there, right? So there's no volume of buyers or sellers in this range. Normally, you're going to try to fill that gap, and whether we fill that gap on this dip down and we've already peaked right here, or whether we're going to go up for a 3 and then ultimately come down and fill this gap, I mean, at some point we're going to fill this gap. But with that being said, if we do break this level, then there's a good chance we'll fill that gap soon. So with that being said, I tried to add these levels just so people can have a little bit of areas to kind of watch for in the market, and just be very mindful that at these levels that we could see some very big flushes, and that can invalidate my counts very quickly and tell us that, hey, this market has topped and we're heading down for our a relatively big drop. So be smart, either have cash ready to go if we do see a big drop, or just make sure you're staying hedged and risk appropriately up here. All right, guys, if you like these videos, go ahead and hit like and subscribe.